Let's talk Ratched. Hey, it is your girl Cattybff, aka your new best friend. And if you're new here, my name is Cattybff. Now, I know I have been gone for a while, okay? I'm back home, I'm no longer in the dorms, I'm taking classes online, but online television though. Listen, okay. I know I've been gone for a minute, but now I'm back, and I'm gonna do a review for you guys. Why the hell not? A lot of us are still quarantined, and if you're not quarantined, you're hiding, and if you're not hiding, well, you're probably somewhere else doing something you shouldn't be doing. But I'm here to review Ratched for you guys, and I got my notes here. If you guys haven't been watching me before, the last review I've ever done was James Charles' influencer little series that he had going on. So with that being said, just like this video, there will be spoilers. So if you're not trying to watch Ratched or anything dealing with Ratched, girl, this is not the place for you. If you don't want spoilers, click off immediately. But let's get into it. Now, I'm gonna be talking about each character that either left an impression on me or I felt was important. And so it's not going to be in any particular order, but you will get snippets of the story throughout this video. So with that being said, I am going to start with Sarah Paulson, aka Nurse Ratched. Now, if you watch American Horror Story, you know that Sarah Paulson is almost in every series. Okay, every season every season of American Horror Story she is in, especially any season that has to deal with witches, she's there. So in this show, she basically plays a nurse, and you find out a lot of things about her throughout the series. When she first starts off, she seems like this very emotionless woman who is so manipulative. Like, oh my god, like she finessed her way into the nurse's job, okay? She lied on her resume to get this job, okay? Like that alone, she was able to convince a mental person to inside the doctor's office of all places and got rid of the body, okay? You later find out that she worked she didn't, like, not later on, but you find out that she ends up, she worked for the military, and she considers herself the angel of death, aka, not the angel of death, the angel of mercy, where she basically kills all her patients, and she stands by that practice because they were all suffering, and like, what better place to be but to be in heaven, you know? So if you need someone to send you into heaven, there's your girl. But she basically starts off as a very emotionalist, manipulative character who is trying to free her brother Edmund, who is the serial killer. Now, with that being said, let's quickly go into Edmund. Now, Edmund, like I said, he's a serial killer. He is the Jeffrey Dahmer of the show, okay? That serial killer that everyone finds out and they all hate, but then the women low-key love. So, because he just so happens to be attractive. But this guy has killed a whole household filled of priests because one of them was the father of him, basically. He basically kills his father because he so yeah, he did a little vengeance, killed the whole family priest, and he ends up in a mental hospital. So with that being said, we're going to go back into Nurse Ratched. So Nurse Ratched basically finesses her way. She finally gets to see Edmund, and she basically tells him, like, look, I'm gonna make myself the head nurse, and we're gonna throw a party, and we're gonna, like, basically make him seem more mentally ill. In the meantime, though, we're going to get into Nurse Bucket. Now, Nurse Bucket was the original head nurse, and every time Nurse Ratched comes around, she basically has an attitude. She was very mean girl to her, except she was the only one in the clique. I mean, she's the head nurse. She's in charge of all the nurses. So regardless of her having friends or not, she's gonna act like that mean girl. She's gonna act like, why here? But she is also obsessed with Dr. Hangover. Now, Dr. Hangover, Dr. Hangover, he just wants to be like, I hope would be any other doctor in this world, you know? They want to help people. He really believes that, like, his hospital can help mental patients go back on track in life and basically end up living a normal life. Now, Dr. Hangover, who is the owner of the hospital, he basically tries to stay away from the hitman of the whole cast, while also wanting to treat people and, like, basically solve all mental issues and basically get funding for the hospital, because the hospital is on a downhill spiral practically into bankruptcy. And so he basically goes to the mayor and gets an endorsement from the mayor later on, not because the mayor wants to, but because the elections are coming up, ironically. The elections are coming up, and he wants his votes to be high. So we got good old Cynthia here, aka Gwendolyn Bridges. Okay, basically convinces him to endorse the hospital. So let's just go quickly into Gwendolyn. So Gwendolyn here, she is actually part of the LGBT, and she is married to her best friend, who is also a part of the LGBT. Listen, I'm actually not against it. I'm not honestly, like, because I believe this is taking place either in the 1940s, 1950s. So in order for them to get the lifestyle they wanted, they basically married each other, and they're literal best friends. Like it's one of those type of best friends, you know. And it's funny because when people get married, they're like, oh, I married my best friend. But like in this instance, that's quite literal. Like, they're literally best friends. You don't see them romantically involved with each other. You just see that very best friend behavior with that just so happens to give kisses on the forehead. So, but yeah, so she is the secretary of the mayor, and she is part of the LGBT. So when it comes to her interacting with Nurse Ratched, Gwendolyn sees a trait in Nurse Ratched that gives her the impression that she's also one of them, okay? And so when Nurse Ratched eventually decides to be like, you know what, I don't think she's trying to hit on me, so I'm gonna just go off with her and see what happens, you know, especially when Nurse Ratched finally becomes the head nurse. Gwendolyn takes Nurse Ratched to a lesbian bar, and she's just looking at her like she's crazy. She's like, why you brought me here? And Gwendolyn's like, oh, like, I just thought, oh, okay, well, like, and that just spits off there. But they do end up being together. Now, before I even step any further into that, though, I'm going to discuss about the hitman, because this is a whole triangle here. You see what I'm saying? This is a whole triangle, because I forgot to mention, Nurse Ratched does live in a motel, and we got our good old Lois, I think it's Lois. She runs the motel. She is also best friends with Nurse Bucket, and this character is nosy as hell and has nothing else to do but be nosy. So, because this motel does not get clients like that, so she has nothing else to do, and something about her is a little off up here. but it's never really a direct thing. But you can tell something about her is just casually off. She seems to be doing like crazy things, like having leeches clean her blood even though she was prescribed medicine. But so Nurse Ratched, when she like the first thing she does after stealing a very expensive outfit, which was gorgeous, the costumes in this series were very nice to look at. But the first thing Nurse Ratched does is go to a motel, and that's when she interacts with Charles Wainwright. Wainwright? I doubt I pronounced that right. I doubt I pronounced that right. So, oh my god, don't do that to me. But when they see each other, when she first gets there, it automatically gives off an impression that they might become love interests. And they do in a sense, however. He claims her to be the worst fuck of his life. And he does end up dying. So yeah, that's fun. But a quick thing about Charles here, he is a hitman because of money. He's not a hitman he is a hitman by choice, but his actual occupation is a private detective. But you know, once you get offered thousands, like anybody will do anything, so anyone will become anything for money, right? But because he was paid thousands to basically go after Dr. Hangover, he is officially a hitman in this instance. Now, who put off a hit on Dr. Hangover here, though, is... let me look at my notes again. If you hear the traffic, my bad. Lenore. So, like, Lenore, okay. So, Lenore, she is a very rich woman. She has very worldly possessions from, like, all over the world. And she has a son who she spoils to death and a monkey. So, what happened was, Dr. Hangover has a terrible past. Lenore knows that her son is clearly mentally ill, in a sense. And so she hires Dr. Hangover to treat Henry. However, when he tries to give Henry acid, Henry was smart enough to basically trick Dr. Hangover into drinking a whole bottle. And so Henry proceeds to break his own arms off after he cut off a worker's arms off, and he tells Dr. Hangover to basically sew the worker's arms onto him, and he ended up getting a rejection of the arms, and somehow that spread to his legs. So now Henry is now armless and legless. He's not paralyzed, but he definitely can't move. So there's that. And so because of that, Lenore basically puts a hit on Dr. Hangover because she realized, like, long before that instant that Henry had, like, this happiness when it came to playing a particular instrument, and because of that, she will never see that happy face or that talent ever again. And so for that was her reason for putting a hit on Dr. Hangover. So just so you won't get confused, there is a triangle between Charles the Hitman, Nurse Ratched, and Gwendolyn. In the end, Nurse Ratched and Gwendolyn end up together. Love and happiness, right? But anyway. So, back to my list though. So yeah, so let's go back to Nurse Bucket, because while Nurse Ratched was basically trying to but Nurse Ratched was basically controlling everything around her at this point, and like in the middle of the series, including Dr. Hangover, considering that he is the owner of the hospital. So she basically tells him to take take Nurse Bucket out to the dance that is in honor of Nurse Ratched of becoming head nurse. He tries to hypnotize Nurse Bucket to basically say, oh, I will go to the dance by myself. Didn't work. So, and he basically abuses his own drugs. He always done that after the horrifying past with Henry. He takes he gets high off his own supply. And so he does that at the dance, and he basically goes off on Nurse Bucket, and Nurse Ratched basically comforts her, and after that particular point, especially with Nurse Bucket finding out that Nurse Ratched is there to release Edmund. It's after that point where the two end up becoming close together to the point of becoming best friends. So, with that being said, I am going to continue, about Dr. Hangover and his patient, Charlotte Wells. Okay, so Charlotte Wells is actually played by Sophie. I'm probably gonna pronounce this last name wrong. Okonado. Don't come for me. But this actress was in The Secret Life of Bees with Queen Latifah, and honestly, I was never the type of person to pay close attention to acting, but this woman was phenomenal. Okay, she came in to Dr. Hangover's office as a patient. She was signing herself in, and while the doctor was diagnosing her, like, her acting was so good. Like, you can tell right off the bat exactly what she had before the doctor even said it, okay? So, Sophie here, playing as Charlotte, has a multiple personality disorder. Charlotte has a multiple personality disorder. And one personality is of I believe a famous pianist. Another one was like a guy that was obsessed with getting rid of Hitler. And I don't know if there was any more. But here's the kicker though, right? So, spoiler alert, Dr. Hangover does die. However, it wasn't in the hands of the hitman, because the hitman had already died by then. The hitman, Charles, died in the hospital after being partially boiled to death, and the guard basically shooting him in the eyes. So, Dr. Hangover, after being relieved of Charles being dead, but he ends up dying in the hands of Charlotte because of her personality disorder. So he was happy that he was basically finally able to help her. He had hope that he was going to be able to fully cure her. However, since Nurse Ratched was able to helped fund the hospital, was told about Dr. Hangover's past. That's what it was. So he helped. She was told Dr. Hangover's past, and she basically appointed I believe, it was Nurse Bucket as the head of the hospital. So Nurse Bucket became control of the hospital, and so Dr. Hangover decided to take patient Charlotte with him, and he basically ended up dying in a motel because when she got into her multiple personality disorder, she got triggered after she was put into a closet because the main reason why she ended up developing that personality disorder was because her trauma was being locked in a closet naked for days, basically getting beat and fed very little food. So when Dr. Hangover decided to hide her in the closet, it triggered her, and she ended up killing him. And so when she got back to her regular self, she realized she killed him. So after Charlotte killed Dr. Hangover, though, she actually ended up taking on his personality, which makes me question whether all her personalities were people that she killed in the past, because that is interesting, okay? Especially if, when was the Holocaust? I can't even remember when it was the Holocaust, but like if this is the 1950s, like it can't be that far. A person from that time couldn't be that far off. So, but yeah, that makes me curious as to whether or not Charlotte's personalities came from people that she has killed. And she basically ends up running off with Edmund at the end of the season too. Same thing with Lois. She ends up running off with Edmund at the very end, even though she's still technically best friends with Nurse Bucket. So, let's see, who else did I? Yeah. Oh my God, no. We have to talk about Huxley, okay? So Huxley, he is a veteran, and half his face has basically been severely damaged to almost no recognition. Like, part of his ear is practically gone, and he is basically, I don't know if it's cataracts, but he's completely blind in one eye. So my man Huxley, he was eventually appointed head nurse after Nurse Bucket was became the very head of the hospital, but Charlotte ended up killing him. And I just had to personally say that, because why would she do that? Like, Huxley was the nicest guy in the hospital, and like, even though half his face was gone, he was still considerably attractive regardless. And plus, he got that scar from being a veteran, so like, at that point, you gotta show some respect, okay? You gotta show some respect for a man Huxley, okay? He fought for your country. Like, he fought for your country. But yeah, so he did become head nurse, and he was basically the wingman of Nurse Ratched too, because every time there's a problem, he would go and tell Nurse Ratched everything. And even when it comes to like the treatments of some of the patients, like Huxley and Nurse Ratched would basically work together to make sure like those crazy painful treatments wouldn't go through for some of these patients. And basically, like, Huxley was one of those guys that made sure everything went smoothly, and it was also very sad because Huxley had a little crush on Nurse Ratched, because he felt like they shared the same morals. However, she's interested. By this time she's already ended up interested in Gwendolyn, so he got friend zoned. But rest in peace, Huxley. Rest in peace, Huxley. And basically, we're gonna hop right back to Lenore. After Lenore gets what she wanted, which was Dr. Hangover's head, because after Charles died, Nurse Ratched was already in contact with her by this time, and so Lenore offered her money to basically kill Dr. Hangover and cut off his head. However, she did not want to personally kill him, but she did collect that check after he was dead, because after Charlotte killed Dr. Hangover, and Charlotte called Nurse Ratched to help clean it up, well, not help clean it up, but she was in a panic, and so Nurse Ratched does what Nurse Ratched does, which is clean things up. And so she was like, you know what, I'm gonna go to the hardware store, I'm gonna get me a saw, and I'm just gonna so she collects the check, whatever. Lenore finally shows the head to Henry, and little did we know, Henry had a little something going on with the workers, and the worker killed Lenore. So Lenore, in her will, basically said, put all my nice worldly things into the museum, the rest belongs to my monkey, and my son needs to go to the psych ward. honestly, beautiful. Like he would have thought he would have gotten some money, but no, honey, because she knew he was still messed up in the head. But yeah, so Lenore does end up being killed because of her son, which is very sad. But other than that, what else am I missing? Dolly. Good old Dolly. Okay. Dolly, when you first see her, she gives you very Alice in Wonderland, because first of all, the nurses' outfits are very pale blue with the apron, I believe, if I remember right off the top of my head. Light blue with the apron. And Dolly is this blonde hair, blue-eyed character who loves to wear red lipstick. Little do we know, she's low-key into serial killers because she likes the thrill of it. Go figure. And just like Nurse Ratched, she tries to help Edmund get out. So after Edmund was able to convince Nurse Ratched to be like, hey, you should like let me deal with Dolly, because if I want to feel any more human, I would like a woman in my life, because I don't know how it feels to love. So yeah, she lets that happen. And so Dolly, after giving him a little hand action and falling in love, she basically helps him break out. So instead of Edmund going to the plan that Nurse Ratched proposed, which was to act like you're really mental, he decides to shoot a guard, and they end up running. So here's the thing though. Dolly refers to movies a lot. She refers to reference movies a lot in efforts of survival. And so after like a night of running and getting some of that eggplant, if you will, they end up surrounded by cops, and instead of following what Edmund says and surrenders herself and let him take the downfall for it, since he's already going to be like on death row or whatever, she decides to shoot up the cops as if that's supposed to do something, and she ends up dying. So because while Edmund is explaining this plan to her, she's like, no, I don't want to live without you. And so live without her she did, because she decided to shoot up some cops, and homegirl got like 17 bullets in her now. So she dies in front of Edmund. Edmund's all like, no, and you just see her laid out. So I just had to put that, because that was the dumbest moment in the whole season. The dumbest moment. I am so serious. The dumbest moment you'll ever see in this entire season. But let's get on to how it ends. So Gwendolyn from the middle towards the end of the season was telling her gay husband that, hey, I found someone and I think we should get a divorce. And he's all like, no, like, this is the lifestyle that we were trying to live. Like, what do you mean you want a divorce? And like, mind you, these two people are having affairs, okay? Sure, they're married. Okay, my camera got cut off, but yeah, so sure, they were married, but like, the husband was still living his best life, okay? And she didn't say anything, and whether she was doing her thing, he clearly didn't say anything. So she was just like, you know what, like, I want to live like as my true self, and I think we should get a divorce. Now first he was fighting against it, and then after a while he was like, you know what, you're right, like, I wish the best for you, like, I still love you, basically. So after the whole situation of her getting fired as secretary and her deciding to get a divorce, she was also diagnosed with breast cancer. And so at that point, Nurse Ratched and Gwendolyn slowly but surely became an official thing. And they basically end up running off to Mexico, because Edmund does end up running off like I said earlier, he does end up running off, and she is fearful of Edmund because while Nurse Ratched was trying to get him out, the mayor was deciding to be like, you know what, forget the institution, forget the hospital, I'm just going to personally execute everyone myself. I mean, not persecute, but personally execute everyone myself so that I could get more votes for the upcoming election. And so that he did, and instead of doing the lethal injection, he wanted to electric chair everybody, even especially if they're burned, then he'll just let it happen. So Nurse Ratched at that point was like, okay, there's clearly no way out for Edmund, so I'm gonna plan to euthanize him. However, when he finds that out, after he finds that out from pure pressuring Nurse Bucket and threatening her life, he basically ends up breaking free ever so quickly because of Charlotte, because Charlotte has taken on a personality of Dr. Hangover and has decided to take Edmund as a patient. So, with that being said though, Edmund had decided by then that he was gonna go and attempt to kill Nurse Ratched. Funny how the tables turned, right? Like, we went from trying to help Edmund to now Edmund wanting to kill us. Great, just great. So, Nurse Ratched and Gwendolyn go off to Mexico, and they basically end up living there, and Nurse Bucket comes down for a vacation. That was until she found out in the newspaper that he killed 7 nurses. So we now went from priests to nurses. Just, yeah. And he ends up driving off in Chicago, I believe, yes. Chicago with Charlotte and Lois. I keep saying this to you, Lois. With Lois. And Nurse Bucket doesn't even know that Lois is with Edmund, so. With that being said though, thank you guys for watching. I missed you guys so much. I'm happy to be back. And be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Tell me what show or movie you want me to review. I'm open to do both, to be honest. But I'm a show person, I like to binge. But yeah, be sure to comment like what movie or show you would be interested in me reviewing. And follow me on all my social medias. I should have said that at the beginning of my video, but follow me on all my social medias. I am also on Twitch. I am a Twitch streamer now. Imagine that, right? Me playing video games. But you can also find me on Twitch at Cattybff, and over there I am your worst gamer girl. So but I love you guys, and I'll see you guys next time.